Yesterday I posted the video featuring my Jenny overalls, and a lot of you were asking about the back bib that I drafted to attach. The Jennies typically have the straps crisscross in the back, and then they are sewn into the waistband. This whole triangle portion does not exist in the original pattern, but as a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to overalls, I like to have the bib there. I have added a bib to both of the pairs that I have made, and drafting the pattern piece for the bib is seriously so easy. It's just a bunch of straight lines and a few measurements. So I'm going to show you how to draft one for yourself. The dimensions of the bib will vary based on the size that you are making. Otherwise, I would have just drawn one that everybody can use. But the height of it is a little bit different, and the bottom width of it is going to be slightly different depending on what size you're making. So let me show you what measurements to take and how to draw it out so that you can have your very own back bib on your Jennies. All right, to get started drafting our back bib pattern piece, we need to gather some of the original pattern pieces. We need the back of your pants or your shorts, whichever version you're making. You need the overalls strap piece, and you need the front bib. And we're going to use all of these to help with the dimensions of our back bib. And the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to establish how wide the bottom of the bib is going to be. And for me, I wanted mine to be as wide as the darts are. That way, when you're looking at the back of the overalls, the back bib ends, and then your eye kind of goes down to the darts. I don't know, it just seemed like it would be a really symmetrical place to start. So in order to figure out that measurement, you need to measure from the center back to the center of your dart. So what I like to do is go ahead and pinch out the dart. Great. Okay, and now I'm going to use my curve runner. These are sold by Stitch Buzz. They're really awesome. I'll have a link in the description box for you. It just makes measuring along a curve super, super easy. So we've got 5/8 inch seam allowances. This is a 5/8 inch ruler, also sewn made by Stitch Buzz. And we have 5 1/4 inches. Now we are done with this pattern piece. We need to also measure the height of the overalls, the front overall bib. And you can see that the way that the pattern is drafted, depending on your size, the height will be different. So you can use a straight ruler for that. And again, I'm just using this as reference to know how tall I want the back bib to be. If you don't want your back bib to be as tall as your front bib, by all means, you can shorten it. Again, I just thought this would be a really symmetrical kind of look, you know, as you turn from front to back. Okay, so I am at 11.5 inches on that. So write that measurement down. And we're remembering, or we will remember, that some of these include seam allowances already. So there's already a seam allowance at the top and bottom of this. We're just gonna leave that in. That's gonna, you know, save us from having to do some math. For the back of the overalls, there's seam allowance on this end, but not on the other end. So we're gonna have to add that in, but that's okay. We will remember to do those things as we draft. The next thing you need to do is measure the width of your overall strap. On the instructions, it says that the finished overall strap is supposed to be 1.5 inches. So I'm inclined to just trust that. Because I guess you'd be finishing the straps in different types of ways depending on your fabric. So let's go ahead and assume that the straps are going to be 1.5 inches wide. Okay, and so here we have those measurements that I just took. All right, we're going to keep them up here in the corner for reference. All right, so now we need to bring in our tracing paper and start drawing this guy out. We can go ahead and draw in the height of the bib because that already had the seam allowances included. So we are going to put in a top and then draw in down to that 11.5 mark, like so. And then we can go ahead and draw in a fake bottom. We'll get the length of the bottom here shortly. This is our bottom. Now we have to draw in the top, which is right here. From the center back to the dart, our measurement was 5¼ inches. But if you remember, the center back seam allowance was already included, right? So we've got this amount already included. And then when you go to the dart, we want the back bib to end here. So we've got to add the seam allowance that's going to allow us to finish those raw edges. So we have to add 5/8 of an inch to the measurement that we took for the center back to the dart measurements. That ends up being 5 7/8. So we want to get that drawn in, 5 7/8. Make sure everything is nice and squared up. And oh, look at all my, I've been using this ruler so much, it's missing its measurements on the side here. I think this is the 5/8 mark. We will double check that. You can see that on the front bib piece, there's actually the seam allowance is stacked a little bit. It's not a gradual line from the cut line. There's actually a little bit. Okay, so this is all going away. And this is our finished width, because we've got the seam allowance of the center back and we've got the seam allowance for the raw edge. So that's all good. Now for the upper portion, this is where the straps are attached. And again, our straps are 1.5 inches wide, plus the seam allowance for the outer edge, and the seam allowance for the center front. So we actually have to take our 1.5, add 2 seam allowances to that. 2 seam allowances are 1¼ inch plus the 1.5. That's 2 3/4 inches that we need to draw for our top line. Roughly 1, 2 3/4, right? Yeah, okay. 2 3/4. So that is the center back seam allowance. That is the strap itself and the seam allowance from the raw edge. So our 1.5 inch strap is going to be nestled nicely in the center of this. Okay, perfect. So now we need to connect the dots. The center front bib does have a slight curve to it, if you can see that. I'm going to omit that for the back. A, because it's easier, and B, because, I don't know, the back being on an actual straight angle is kind of nice, I think, for the back. The front, you have like, you know, a chest and all of that, so a curve is a little bit flattering, but in the back, I think having it straight would be better. Okay, so there we have it. So you just want to write in what it is that you've done here. And then we also need to draw in our grain line, and the grain line is parallel to the center back, like so. And then we can cut this guy out. But we are not done just yet, because we have to make a facing for our bib as well. You can reference the facing of the front in order to get the height that you need. Let me move all of this out of the way. And we can write height of facing, and that comes to 2 1/2 And then it is, here's a little bit of trickery for you, but it is twice the width of the facing, drawn exactly along the raw edges, and putting a little mark at the center front where the seam line actually is. So we're gonna mimic this almost exactly using this guy as a reference. So what I like to do is just put this under here, right? Put some pattern weights on just to kind of anchor the top down like so. And we are gonna measure we're gonna draw in around the top of the bib. And if you noticed on here, again, there's a little tick toward the inside so that whenever you sew this, that little guy doesn't peek out as much. So we are gonna mimic that as well. We have the top, we need to measure down 2 3/8. And then on the seam allowance side, we are gonna make a little bit of an angle. I don't know what degree that angle is. Let's just copy this one. Okay, and now we need to double this. So what's the easiest way to do that? That would be to just flip this little piece over and retrace it. But don't forget that we've got to account for the seam allowance being taken out. So we're gonna go ahead, draw in our little notch for the seam allowance, mimicking this guy here. And we're gonna line up our center back with this notch here, not the line that we drew in, like so. Okay, and once you have that, you can finish drawing out your bib. And put in a grain line. Okay, so we can cut this out. And the beauty of these two things is that you are going to sew them exactly how you are instructed to sew the front bib. So you will sew the center back seam first, and then press that to one side, top stitch, and then you will attach this facing to the top of your bib, sew around, you know, the whole top perimeter, flip it right sides out, turn in your seam allowances along the angled edge, then you'll attach it to the shorts waistband. But it's really just as easy as that to get a bib drafted and the corresponding facing as well. That will allow you to have some Jenny overalls with a back bib. So, super simple. I told you it's just a bunch of straight lines and one little angle. You just got to factor in some seam allowances and really just kind of like borrowing a lot of information from the front bib and applying it to the back really makes kind of the guessing game of, oh, how tall should it be? How wide? It eliminates all of that because we're really just using the pattern designer's original bib as a guide. So if you do it the way that I explained, you will have a bib that looks just like mine. So hopefully this will help maybe add the Jenny to your collection of overalls patterns. I know some people weren't buying it because it was missing a back bib, but hopefully now that you can draft your own, maybe you will invest in the pattern. Again, I truly love it. One of my top 5 makes of all time. I am just wearing it like crazy. So hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions about anything that we went over today. You can leave them in the comments section below. I will have a little bit of information in the description box. Any products or anything extra that I mentioned today, I will have in the description box. So please be sure to check that out. But that is going to do it for me today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye.